Hey guys, what's up? It's Muaaz here and welcome back to another video. So in today's video, I'm actually going to be teaching you guys how to build a VR ready gaming PC for $1,000. I've made two videos similar to this on how to build a $500 gaming PC, which both did amazing, and a lot of you guys keep asking me to make more of those, but with higher budgets. So here's a $1,000 one, and so what I'm thinking about doing is making one of these at least once a month at the end of every month, because they're pretty high in demand and I want to supply you guys with the content that you want. And at the time that I'm making this video, the price does come out to around $1,000, but at the time that you guys might be watching this video in like a month or 2 months, there's a chance that the prices might have fluctuated, but the build is most likely going to stay around the $1,000 range. My favorite thing about builds like the one that I'm about to show off is that there's more than enough room for tons of upgrades in the future, as I did make sure to pick out some of the most up-to-date components which will last you a really long time, and swapping out for new hardware in the future shouldn't bring you any difficulties whatsoever. And this build is going to be powerful enough to handle literally any game out there, and all the games which are going to be coming out in the upcoming years, if not more. Anyways, before we get started, I just want to say be sure to hit that like button, share this video with your friends, and go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you aren't already, because I am on my way to 40,000 subscribers and all help is appreciated. Also, let me know in the comment section below what games you guys have been playing, and I'll be sure to check some of them out. But other than that, let's get on with the video. So powering our build is actually going to be the Intel i5-7600K, and I know what you're thinking. I'm spending $1,000 and I'm just getting an i5? Just trust me, this is going to be an amazing processor which is going to allow you to save a ton of money on other components, and you're barely going to notice a difference in performance. And again, trust me when I say that you're probably going to notice minimal difference in performance compared to an i7. And this is essentially just the newer version of the 6600K, and honestly they're not much different at all. The only difference is that this one has very minimal increase across the board in regards to like clock speed, but that's honestly the only difference. And the only reason that I chose this instead of the 6600K is because you're only paying it like an extra $20 for a newer product. So since you're already spending so much on the build itself, the extra $20 shouldn't hurt you too much. And moving on from that to the motherboard, I was originally going to say the Asus Prime Z270 motherboard, as it's a pretty awesome motherboard, but that's a bit pricier by around like $50, and you're not getting an edge over someone else who has that. I would say that motherboard is more of like a flex motherboard, if that makes sense. To save you the $50, I would recommend getting the MSI Pro Series Intel Z270 motherboard. This is going to be able to support the 7th and 6th generation Intel processors for the LGA 1151 socket, which will be perfect for our KB Lake processor. And speaking of the processor, I totally forgot to mention the cooler that we're going to be using. So these new processors don't come with stock cooling options like the little Intel fans that you would find with like a 4690K or something like that. So due to that, you do have to buy from a third party like Cooler Master, CORSAIR, or really anyone else. So what I recommend doing for this build is going to be getting the Cooler Master Hyper 212 Evo, which is a really affordable CPU cooler which most people tend to buy when they're on a budget. So there's really nothing wrong with this cooler whatsoever. A ton of people use it, and the link to the processor, which I'll have in the description below, will also have an option to buy the processor with the exact same cooler that I just mentioned, but I'll also leave a link to the cooler individually if you're interested in that. But moving back onto the motherboard, it's probably the cheapest Z270 motherboard that you're going to be able to find at the moment, and at the end of the day it does have a pretty solid amount of features which makes it somewhat competitive with the more expensive ones in case you're debating on which one to get. I'd go with this one. And speaking of features, this does allow for a maximum of 64GB of RAM, which is incredibly good for the average consumer. And since we're talking about RAM, for this build I decided to go with a pretty simple 16GB kit of RAM. I believe it's just two 8GB sticks. And the thing is, I would have loved to find you guys a really nice looking kit of RAM with like LEDs or like heat sinks or something, but the thing is that almost every 16GB kit of RAM costs over $100, so this is the best I could go with the budget given, and the rest of the pieces which I have in store for you guys. And now moving on from the processor and the motherboard and the CPU and the RAM, we've got the hard drives. And for my past builds, I've usually decided to go with the Western Digital Caviar Blue 1TB hard drive with no SSD or really anything else, but since we do have a larger budget, I decided to go with the SSD HDD combo. And for the SSD, I went with the SANDISK 120GB plus SSD, and I do actually have the 240GB version of this in my current build, and it does run fantastic with some pretty decent speeds, and it's really not noticeable how slow it is, because honestly it is pretty fast, but you're only going to notice a difference if you have like a Samsung SSD or something. And honestly it's really cheap, coming in at around like $45, so definitely the SSD to get if you're on a budget, and trust me, it's pretty good for its speeds. And now in regards to the hard drive, I decided to bump up from a 1TB Western Digital Caviar Blue to a 2TB version, which will allow you to have more space in regards to your games, your music, your videos, and all your other documents or applications that you like plan on installing. And just remember that the point of this type of combination is to put your OS or your operating system on the SSD, and then most of your other things on the hard drive, such as like your games, music, videos, and all that good stuff. And now moving on from all of that stuff, here's the part that I'm sure that most of you guys have been waiting for, and that's the GPU. So for this build, I decided to go with the EVGA GTX 1070 with 8GB of VRAM, and it's also super clocked, which is awesome. Now this GPU fit the budget perfectly, and it has incredible benchmarks for all types of games, but if you're really trying to get the best thing ever, I would definitely recommend getting the 1080 or the 1080 Ti if you can somehow squeeze in the extra like $200, because the difference in performance is definitely going to be well worth it in the end. But again, in the end, the 1070 is much like the rest of the build, and what I mean by that is that it's going to be more than enough for the average consumer, and it's going to be able to play tons of games coming out in the upcoming years. So really, the 1080 or the 1070, you can't go wrong with either of them. Now for the first time, I'm actually going to be using a case that looks pretty high tier in comparison to the other cases I've used. Normally I use the CORSAIR 100R mid-tower case, which is just a sleek and professional looking case, but due to our increased budget, I'm actually able to use the CORSAIR CARBIDE series SPEC-ALPHA mid-tower gaming case. And the reason why I chose this case is because I actually built a PC for my friend using this case not too long ago, like literally like 2 months ago, and it was actually incredibly spacious. And if I can find a picture in my phone of the inside of the build after I put it together, then I'll toss it up on the screen right now. But anyways, it was a fantastic case, and I highly recommend it to anyone who's thinking about building a PC. It's gonna have tons of room for improvements in the future and all that good stuff. And now to close up the video, we do have the power supply, and for this build I knew that the EVGA 600 watt 80 plus bronze certified power supply would do just the job for what we're gonna be using the build for. And it's only like $49.99. It's probably the cheapest power supply you can find that's from a popular brand like EVGA or CORSAIR. And I didn't want to give you guys some random like off-brand power supply that won't last you guys a long time, so I knew that this would be like the best option for you guys. Anyways guys, that's really it for the video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Be sure to hit that like button and share this video with your friends. Also be sure to drop a comment below letting me know if you guys do enjoy these kinds of videos so I can keep making them at least once a month, with like a different budget or different parts and stuff like that. Also, I'm planning on making a real life how to build a PC video in the near future, so let me know if that's something you guys want me to do. And I'd probably do that with one of my old $500 gaming PC videos, sorry. And I can definitely consider doing that if you guys do want that. But other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, as I am on my way to 40,000 subscribers, and all help is appreciated. But other than that, I'll see you guys in my next video. Peace.